friend. Perfect timing. I'm about to make some fresh salsa. And you've been telling me how you wanted to learn how to do that, so I can go ahead and teach you real quick. For my salsa, what I do is I get fresh ingredients at the store, and then mainly it's just blended together, but there's a couple of key things I do in the order and the preparation to make sure it turns out how I like it. You can't just throw it all in there. First thing I get, which is the most important, is cilantro. When you're at the grocery store, if you haven't bought cilantro very often, it can sometimes look like parsley, and they're normally right next to each other. So when you go, you can grab the cilantro and grab one of the stems and you pinch it. It lets off a very distinctive smell that it lets you know that it's cilantro. Parsley doesn't really do that. So if you're not paying attention, you might grab parsley on accident, you get home and you're not happy. The next thing that you need is a white onion. I normally buy a medium white onion. Don't really need a large one. If you can't get one that's too small, then you can use half of the onion or whatever. I found after trial and error that white onion ends up giving me my favorite flavor in the salsa. You can test around with other onions. If you use a yellow onion, it might be a little bit sweeter, which you might like in your salsa, but I prefer the white. Also, you go with a red onion, but I find that it overpowers some of the other ingredients. So I like a white onion. It kind of blends in well with everything that we got going. I also get a vine-ripened tomato. After I blend everything, I'll dice up the tomato into small pieces and I'll mix it in. Kind of adds a pico de gallo type feel to it. It's still a salsa, but I like add that in. I also grab 1 clove of garlic. I slice it thin, get that mixed in. There's an underlayment of the garlic flavor, which I really like. I also get 28 ounces of canned whole tomatoes. Sometimes you can get those in one 28-ounce can. Today at the store, I had to buy 2 14-ounce cans, which doesn't really matter either way. And finally, where you get the heat in your salsa is your peppers. Today I'm using 2 jalapeno peppers, which when you're sharing this with other people, that's a pretty good starting point. Most people could handle 2 peppers, 2 jalapenos. If you want to crank it up a notch, you can move to a serrano pepper, which is about 3 times hotter than a jalapeno. I looked at the Scoville scale, which is kind of interesting. It's an international rating of peppers. A bell pepper is about a 0 on that scale. Jalapeno, you're looking at in a range of 3,000 to 6,000 points. A serrano pepper is going to be around 10,000 points, and if you really want to get spicy, you can throw a habanero in there, which is around 100,000 Scoville points. So a little trivia for you there on the Scoville scale and heat rating. So I get everything together and I mix up in a blender and then put it in a bowl and kind of mix in some of the other ingredients. So if you come on a little bit closer, I'll show you how I put it together and then you'll be ready to make it your own house. Alright friends, so here we go. We got everything laid out. One of my favorite things about this salsa is that the prep work is actually pretty easy. You don't really have to do too much. The blender does most of the work. I take whatever peppers I get, I cut off the tops, and I just drop the jalapenos straight into the blender. Next thing you do is you take your canned whole tomatoes. I've drained most of the juice out. I found that when you keep most of the liquid from the can and you pour that into the blender, it makes the salsa thinner. So I like it a little bit thicker. So I keep it like that. So I put in the canned whole tomatoes, and then I eyeball about 3/4 of this bunch of cilantro, and I kind of take off the tops of them. You'll get some of the stems kind of in the mix, but this is all just kind of by feel. If you don't like cilantro too much, you can use a little bit less. If you love cilantro a lot, you can use more. I generally go once over with my knife on the cilantro. The more you break it up, the more the flavors release and can get blended with your whole salsa mixture. So I really enjoy that. I toss this in here. Again, like I said, this recipe is pretty great because there's not that much prep work involved. I generally take off the outer skin of the onion and maybe take a couple of chunks, but again, you're letting the blender do most of the work. So you pulse it, and you can see the reason you pulse it is because it gives it a second to recap on what's going on. Once it gets blended a little bit, things will settle back down. If you just leave it on the whole time, you're not going to get it completely blended. So you can see how it waits for it to catch. Alright, so now after you got everything blended in your initial run, I go ahead and dice up my tomato. Nothing real fancy about how you dice it. I'll just kind of get some big chunks so it can mix in. Alright, I got these tomatoes cut up, and now I just take my clove of garlic. I already peeled it, but take the skin off and just kind of get in like, real light. Get nice thin slices. Also have a little bit more onion left that I didn't blend. And I'm also going to get some chunks that we're going to throw that in the salsa too. Again, that's kind of a preference on how big you want your onions to be in your salsa. I don't want them so small from the blender, but I want them big enough that there can be some substance on the chip. Alright, so there you go. We get all those ingredients. We're going to empty out the blender into a bowl, mix it all together, and we'll be good to go. Alright, now that we got everything chopped up and ready, I'm going to empty out the blender real quick into my bowl. And there you go. And then kind of you get the tomato, onion, garlic, and you just kind of put it on top, and I'll mix it in with a spoon. It's going to be great. Alright, so once you mix everything together, this is kind of what the final product ends up looking like. I garnished it a little bit for presentation, but you can serve it with chips. A lot of times it's good over eggs or anything you want salsa with. Hope this is helpful for you, and hopefully you can start making your own fresh salsa. I'll see you next time, friend.